As long as you can hear him.
Yeah, so how do you know they don't just really like you?
Because they get commission.
What's that?
They get commission off of what I found. And I know that and they know that, so.
Okay. Another example of persuasion.
In elections?
In elections, we're getting bombarded by information and disinformation about candidates, right? With the aim of getting, one person in a position of power. And, it works on national elections, it works on, for, campus elections. One more example, let's turn it around. What's the time that so we've talked about times where you've been persuaded. Have you ever had to persuade somebody?
I tried to persuade my wife to cook dinner.
It sounds like you were unsuccessful. Right?
I was gonna say dating.
Dating? Yeah. Good example.
Persuade my wife to go skydiving.
Oh, yeah? Was that a tough job?
Yeah.
No? She was game.
Match with crap, I guess.
So persuasion in business and in life in general, trying to get other people to do what you want. That's obviously an important part of management, right? That's what management is. It's strategy, but it's also getting people to do what you want. So there's a lot of you trying to persuade other people, and in life, a lot of other people trying to persuade you. And there's a psychologist named Robert Cialdini who kind of dedicated a good portion of his career to understanding how to get how persuasion works. And he used some unorthodox kind of techniques to answer this question. He became a door-to-door vacuum salesman for a while. I mean, he was a professor, but sort of did these things on the side. He went places where people are good at persuading. So, has anyone had a door-to-door vacuum? Right? What was that? Someone talk about that over here. Have you had someone come to your house?
Oh yeah, it was when I lived with my parents in high school. But they came in and they shampooed all of our carpet and cleaned it, and my parents acted interested and they didn't buy it and they're like, okay.
Yeah. So, I came home from work a while ago, it was maybe a year ago, and my wife had somebody come around and offer to clean one room, and they did, but it was like an hour and a half, and she wanted to leave, and they were there, and they wouldn't leave, and I came home, and I was like, I could step in here and make them leave, or maybe this is a learning opportunity. And not long after that, we had a no soliciting sign up that my wife put up. So vacuum salesman, he became a vacuum salesman. He sold used cars, and he sort of learned how people sell used cars, and he joined a cult. These are three things that he did. Cults are great at getting people to do things, right? That's not, so they're good at persuasion, right? So, and kind of looking at society in general, he observed 6 principles of influence. Each is based on a heuristic. A heuristic is a rule of thumb. Rules of thumb are never 100% accurate 100% of the time. It's kind of a guideline that's good enough. When I'm approaching a stoplight and I have, and I can choose to get behind, say a Tesla or a Cadillac. Who do I want to get behind? Tesla. Who's going to be driving the Cadillac? An old person. How do old people drive? Slow. right? So in general, this is just a heuristic I use. I try not to get behind Cadillacs because they drive slow. Is that right 100% of the time? It's just a heuristic. It's a rule of thumb that is good enough that it's effective. So he identified some heuristics that in most cases make sense and are generally worthwhile, but they can be kind of twisted to persuade. The first one is called social validation. And the heuristic is this: when in doubt, go with majority opinion. Let's say, does anyone know where Lithuania is? Because I know. Where is it?
That's what Eastern Europe.
Eastern, okay, good. Let's say you're in, what do they speak in Lithuania? Russian? Lithuanian? What is it? Lithuanian? So, let's say we're in a class, let's say you are in Lithuania. You hear a siren, and everybody runs for the door. You're gonna run for the door. Why? Right? It sort of makes sense. In that case, going with the majority opinion, it makes sense, right? It would probably be stupid to stay where you are when everybody is running for the right, assuming they understand what's going on. So this makes sense in a lot of cases. A couple more examples of this. So bystanders, when people see, people assume a lot about how serious a crisis is based on how other people act. So they've done studies to this effect where, I might as well describe this study pretty thoroughly. I think it's an interesting study. So what they did was they brought people into the lab, and you were met with two other people in the lab. And in one set of one condition, well, in all the conditions, they started to pump a little bit of smoke into the room, right? Just a small amount of smoke. And they timed how long it took participants in the study to report the smoke that they smelled. And when people were in there alone, they reacted very quickly within about a minute or so. People who smelled smoke, I remember it was a small amount, but when people smell smoke in a building, they're pretty quick to get up and report that. But what they found is if they were in the room with two people who acted very calmly, that it took them around 6 minutes before they would react. In some cases, they were coughing, they were, their eyes were watering. There was obviously smoke in the room, but they sort of assumed based on how other people were reacting that it wasn't a big deal. Right? So that's bystanders, and that's people sort of, that's the power of this heuristic, right? Go with what most people are doing. Does anyone know what canned laughter is?
Yeah, I know.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's lots of TV shows that have canned laughter, like 2.5 Men, or is that what it's called in America? 2.5 Men, or like Cool Uncle Charlie or whatever?
Yeah, 2.5 Men.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in that show, they so how does that work? How does the canned laughter work?
They have some kind of joke and then they have laughter, so people are supposed to know to laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's this weird thing where when you hear other people laughing, people think something is funnier just by virtue of the fact that other people are laughing. So they sort of type in this laughter that sort of will influence how funny the viewer thinks it is. That's kind of gone out of style now, and most TV shows don't have that. But that lasted for a long time because it affects how funny people think something is. And you'll see shows that say filmed in front of a live studio audience, which is true a lot of times, but they also supplement that with additional laughter so that it seems like it's a really funny show, right? So a couple of examples of social validation. This can be used in various ways to get other people to act the way you want them to. Salty the tip jar. What is this? without knowing what this is, I bet someone can guess what this is talking about.
You're putting in like your own money into the jar, so people are like, oh, other people need 50% off it.
Yeah, exactly. This is a tried and true technique. You look guilty.
I am guilty.
Okay.
I worked at Subway and we couldn't label the jar as tips, so I would stick money inside of it. And if you stuck a $5 bill instead of a $1 bill, you'd get better tips.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You don't want to put a bunch of change in there. Yeah. You want to signal that other people are generous in their tips, and that, right? Because the signal then is you should be generous, right? So this works. And another way that social validation can be used is this is something that owners for clubs have figured out. This was particularly, this is something that Cialdini discovered in some of his research, that nightclubs were intentionally creating lines outside the club. Why?
Make it look desirable.
Yeah, make it look like that's the place everyone wants to go. And when that's the place everyone wants to go, then it becomes this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where it's, you know, it's a desirable, it appears to be desirable. It seems like everybody's on board, and so everybody gets on board, right? Number one, so you see this all the time, you know, the number one selling car in America, the number one selling, you know, whatever. And this is a pretty obvious way of saying lots of, you know, number one, everybody is on board with this. And there's a kernel of truth in this too. So the top selling trucks and cars, you know, they sort of position varies a little bit, but Ford F-150 up at the top, Toyota Corolla up at the top, Honda Accord up at the top. Those are kind of variously top selling car or truck in the U.S. And those are all well-made cars. You're not gonna, those are all safe bets, right? So there's a kernel of truth in it, but you also get a lot of kind of exploitations of this idea. I was watching TV the other night, and I heard them talk about a show. I don't remember what it was, but they called it the number one new hit comedy. So what are they saying there? The number one new hit comedy. Is it the number one show? No, what is it?
It's a new show.
It's a new show, okay. Is it number one among new shows? What is it? Among new shows that happen to be comedies, it's number one. Which might place it one of three, right? It's a different thing than being the number one show, or the number one new show, or the number one comedy. The number one new comedy is, right, you're not really saying a whole lot when you're saying the number one new comedy, right? But the message is, other people are on board, and you should be too. A couple other examples. How does this take advantage of social validation?
No one just like randomly chooses not to shave off by themselves.
Right. It's a clear signal to other people. You see other people doing it, and it makes sense to kind of get on board, right? It's when you see a lot of people who haven't shaved in November, it's right. That's an element of social validation. Apple kind of faced a dilemma when they started making the MacBook, which is, does anyone have one here? Probably got one right here. Judy. Yeah. So you see, can you hold up your MacBook, let everybody see the logo? Okay, will you shut it? Yeah, shut it. Yeah, there you go. So now look at the relation of the logo to her. It's upside down. It's upside down to her, which makes, it's kind of weird that you would, the correct orientation has the logo upside down. Why, so why would they do that?
Everybody else.
Yeah, it's a social validation thing. You're showing other people the logo. And so the logo is oriented not for the user, it's for the appearance of other people, right? Does that make sense? Oh, is it? You can sort of see how somebody would say, well, no, we want it to be face up, correctly oriented for the user, but that's not right. For purposes of social validation, showing how common and showing other people the logo, you orient it differently. So that's the first principle, which is social validation. There are 6 of these, and we'll maybe get through 3 today. By the way, this is in chapter 7 in your book, talks about persuasion, and it talks about some things that are kind of interesting, but mostly, I think this stuff is more useful all right, so the second principle is authority, and the heuristic here is it pays to follow the suggestions of a legitimate authority. There's a documentary on Bob Marley that was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is, but it was pretty interesting. He had cancer in his butt, and the doctors, legitimate authorities, said we can take care of this. It's going to require surgery. You might lose a toe, but on the upside, you'll be alive. He got some advice from his Rastafarian buddies. It was like, all you need is good vibes and a bag of weed. Who do you think he followed? Yeah, he followed. Yeah. So, and that's why he died, right? He didn't follow the suggestions of a legitimate authority. If you've got a problem with a car, you want to go to somebody who. Right, this is why this is a heuristic. Is it makes sense most of the time to follow the advice of somebody who knows what they're talking about, right? But this can easily be twisted to get people to do something that's really not in their self-interest. So you see this kind of thing a lot. Whenever you see advertisements for pharmaceuticals, it's what? It's a pharmacist or a doctor, right? Almost always going to see a white lab coat, right? Unless it's 2 people in bathtubs on their front porch or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? But for almost all pharmaceutical ads, you put somebody in a lab coat and you sort of, there's an air of authority and kind of wisdom that you perceive. The term for this is smuggling authority. Smuggling authority is where you are claiming expertise in an area where you don't have expertise. Anyone think of another example of this where you've seen an advertisement where somebody is making claims outside an area of their expertise?
Unfood, 100% natural. Always confuses me. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's sort of tricky because it's like I'm going to assume that everything that's in a piece of food is from Earth, right? So I'm not sure what it means for it to be unethical. But when we talk about smuggling authority, we're usually talking about a person who is claiming to know something that's outside their realm of expertise. Let me give you an example. Explain the appearance of authority. Well, let's talk about this for a minute. Does anyone know who Milgram is? Can you talk about famous Milgram studies? Well, actually, I want to know, who does not know who Milgram is? Okay, so yeah, let's hear it.
He was a psychologist who did the famous prison studies, the shock therapy studies, or shock studies. where he would have just a random stranger think that he's electrocuting someone in another room and see how high they would turn up the voltage, and then to see like how many people would go up to like the killing zone, which would just be 3 X's on the dashboard essentially.
Well, let me, so it was sort of low level shocks, mid-level shocks, high level shocks, danger, extreme danger, XXX. And the question is how high would people go? So,
Yeah. And so they had a guy, I shouldn't laugh, it's terrible. He had a guy like sit in a room by himself, and then he would hear pre-recorded voices of a guy in another room, and it would start off like, oh, ow, that hurt, every time he got an answer wrong, quote unquote. And then he got to the last part where it was just like dead silence after tons of yelling, and he found that the majority of people would go up to the killing zone just because someone told them to.
yeah, they had somebody in a lab coat saying, go on, the experiment must continue. And the guy in the other room was like, oh, my heart, I've got a heart condition, stop this experiment. And the guy in the lab coat would be like, the experiment must continue. The people would go, oh, he said so. And they kept going up until it sort of reached the maximum. And he did a ton of different versions of that study, but it was between 90 to 98% of participants went all the way to the maximum. And so the point is that people are susceptible to claims of authority. People, when somebody is in a position of authority, our natural, we want to think that we'll stand up to authority, but in practice that doesn't happen a lot, right? So claims of authority. This isn't maybe. So Chris Carter's a receiver. Does anyone know who he played for? Viking. Retirement planning can be a way to stay ahead of the game, right? He's a wide receiver, football player. His expertise in retirement planning may be less certain than it is in football, right? So this is a good example of smuggling authority, right? He's sort of claiming to have expertise outside his domain of expertise.
He actually, I just saw something about this. He actually, like towards the end of his career, at one point was nearly bankrupt until his son got paid from Schwab-Juice because he was like one of the players that almost went bankrupt with millions of dollars.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That makes us even better.
Yeah. Not as a reporter, so I'm doing that too.
Yeah. No, he's probably doing all right. The study, the statistics on this are hard to come by, but professional athletes are kind of notorious for going bankrupt early on. I think Shaquille O'Neal's been bankrupt like 3 times. And it's not an income thing, right? I don't know if you can see this. It says that George Schaller is doing all he can to help the animals of the planet survive. Luckily, he doesn't have to worry about his robots. So how is this smuggling authority tailored?
Why are you buying a Rolex? That should be like the making
He uses that money.
Well, he got into saving animals for the money. No. How is this smuggling authority?
Is he attesting to the durability of this watch and its mechanisms, even though he's really a whatever he is, scientist?
Yeah, so he's an animal conservationist. That would be his area of expertise. Super high-end luxury watches, presumably less inside, right? So when you're making claims outside your area of expertise, that's smuggling authority. George Foreman, I got the fat grill. His expertise is in boxing and these grills. By the way, these sold extremely well, but the company never made money. George Foreman worked a deal with them that was really, really favorable to him. So he made a few bucks on every one that was sold, but the company, I think, was Sultan. They ended up not. The deal they worked out was terrible for them and great for him. So he got really rich, and they didn't end up doing so well. Has anyone been married recently? Did you get one of these when you got married?
3.
You
I was gonna say we
got-
can.
Yeah, it's like a standard, it's the standard kind of wedding gift is, did you not get one?
No.
That's a bad omen.
I got 2 crock pots though.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. All right, so that's smoking authority. Next principle is scarcity. You know what? I had some videos I wanted to show you too. So hang on one second. So while I'm setting this up, somebody want to tell us about your exciting summer?
Well, I kind of have a plan. So back to like.
It's hard 'cause this thing's right here.
My stepdad got one to sit down and do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but you just said you want to do it, and I was like, sure. Is that right? Did it by Harvard and you?
He walks over there.
Who traveled the farthest over Christmas? Oh, sorry, over whatever. What season are we? What day is this?
We went to Paris.
I went to Thailand, didn't
Thailand in May.
I think that's for the fires.
It's amazing.
Oh,
I would recommend.
really?
Yeah.
Anyone else go somewhere exotic?
Vancouver,
You went to Vancouver? That sounds fun.
Canadians are nice.
Cancun? That's legit.
They're like, stereotypically like really polite.
I have things you want me to write.
It's terrible. People are so polite. They just let you.
Can you guys see it okay? All right, just a couple examples of smuggling authority. And there's a billion of these, but this is just kind of, pretty much any celebrity endorsement is gonna fall under, there's a smuggling authority, right?
Post
Yeah, this is for everybody.
on the online.
Yo, what's up? I'm just not feeling it.
Last name ever, first name greatest. Like a sprained ankle, boy, ain't nothing to play with.
All right.
Hey, Dad.
No, I'm just
But we really want to show you
I've got
something.
something to do. I'm trying to bring this.
You really should see this.
What is it then? What is it?
These aren't Pepsis. They're Pepsi Twists.
You're a bunch of bloody magicians.
And we're not the Osborns.
You're not.
We're the Osmonds.
I'm a little bit country.
I'm a little bit rock and roll.
Sharon, the kids are turning into the husbands.
Oh, they're there, dear. Go back to sleep.
Breakthrough artist Katy Perry is one of music's biggest stars with songs that show off her feisty girl power charisma. But Katy has a secret.
Yeah, you would think I would be the most confident person, but the most confident person still has their moments. And a lot of my most insecure moments related to my face and to my acne problems. I had acne right here, you know, next to my mouth. The microphone's here, where everybody's watching. I wanted to just hide.
Alright, so let's talk about scarcity. Scarcity, alright. So scarce resources tend to be worth more. You know, people do a lot of kind of hand-wringing about gas prices and if it's fair or not. The truth is that the price of gas is just, it's linked to supply and demand. When demand tends to be pretty stable, and so when supplies drop, that's when prices go up. And this is true for a lot of things. Diamonds are not nearly as rare as they appear to be. They're rare in the market, and one of the reasons for this is there's a company, it used to be named De Beers, and they changed their name. I don't know what the new name is, but they have massive stockpiles of diamonds that they keep stockpiling. Oh, they keep stockpiling. So to create scarcity, and that keeps the prices up. Rubies and sapphires are rarer than diamonds are, geologically, but in the market, diamonds are rarer, and that's why diamonds are more expensive. And I had this conversation with my wife when we were getting engaged, and I was like, let's get, we need to get a diamond. That ain't happening. No, Lee. Oh, yeah. I don't know the current state of things, but for a time, executives from De Beers couldn't land on U.S. soil.
Yeah, well, because they used to do that in the stock market too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this kind of thing is common, and with commodities markets, being able to control or keep a cap on the supply to keep prices up, that's illegal, but it's also kind of common practice. Well, it's you might be thinking of monopoly, but another example with De Beers or the diamond supply, when there were small diamond companies that would try to compete, they would then flood the market, or they would allow more into the market, depress the prices, and run the competitors out of business. They're super ruthless, but that sort of makes the point of supply and demand, in particular with diamond. Have you guys seen the movie Blood Diamonds? Has anyone seen that movie?
Yeah.
They find that pink diamond. Where does it go in the end? Remember? Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler.
It goes into a vault. It goes into a vault. There's a giant pink diamond that then, at the end, it just wheel it into a vault. And that's.
I was gonna say that about the chocolate diamonds they have now. They are supposed to be super rare, but all of a sudden they appeared everywhere all at once. And so they just must have been stockpiling these colored diamonds for a long time before they released them to the market.
Yeah, so I don't really know a lot about diamonds or jewels, but from what I understand, other companies try to release chocolate diamonds earlier, and that's when De Beers would they would release a bunch, and that would depress the prices, and some people trying to compete would kind of get run out. Let's see what, oh yeah, the Disney Vault, here's a great example. Somebody explain the Disney Vault to me.
They put their old classic movies in the vault, and they don't release them until specific times.
Well, now, where is the vault exactly?
Well.
Outer space.
Yeah.
The vault? I don't know.
Just sitting there.
What is the vault? Say that again.
Off the market.
Yeah, off the market. They make some movies unavailable. And why would they do that? Create scarcity so that when they're out of the vault, then there's a lot of demand for them, right? So that's the vault, this idea of the vault. I mean, obviously there's no vault. It's just their way of saying, you can't, no, you can't have it. We're gonna keep this scarce so that it'll be more profitable for us to have it. And for whatever movies aren't in the vault, sort of a big deal, right? Another example, limited number tactic. This is another example of scarcity. You know, this is the last one in stock. That's something that you might hear. Last day. While supplies last. This kind of thing is designed to give the impression of scarcity. Rue Lala, has anyone heard of Rue Lala? This is an invitation-only shopping website. And it's invitation-only, which creates kind of the perception that it's exclusive and difficult to obtain. And so that sort of increases the value of being a member of Rue Lala. Probably a better example, when I was in high school back in 92, before letting in, Ozzy Osbourne announced his No More Tours tour, his last tour of all tours. I was like, I can't die without seeing Ozzy in concert, you know? You guys know what I'm talking about? And so I bought tickets to this. Probably 15 tours later, he's still like, wheel his old bones out and he mumbles. Yeah. He mumbles a few songs. But the idea is, it no more tours, that created a sense of scarcity, which made it more valuable, right, and made it more desirable to attend. That was worth like $1,000. Here's a list of limited edition video games. I'm just gonna, let's kind of scroll down here. So here they are. So, what's the limited edition video game?
A scarce video game.
Right?
Box.
You can kind of get a sense here from the numbers of limited edition video games that this works, right? I'm not really even looking at any of them, but it just the size of this list kind of gives you a sense that this works. This is a technique that works. You make something limited edition, and it becomes more value because of its scarcity. And we're up to 360, Xbox One, there we are. So that's limited edition video games. Deadline technique, this is another way of creating scarcity. You know, sale ends on whatever date. Again, that's to create the sense of scarcity. Amazon does this with their lightning deals or their deals of the day, where you can kind of see this, right? This is the amount of time left. This is how many have claimed the deal of the day. I think I have this link here so you can see what they've got today. Deal of the day. Ooh, a telephone. Do they still sell them? There's a zapper.
There's a zapper.
This? This one's not a super hot cell. So again, scarcity. Time is running down. So you see this kind of deadline technique where there's a deadline coming up and you can only claim your product until that point. The home shopping network isn't as big a deal as it used to be. But one of the things that they do is they typically they'll show a product and then they'll do a countdown, right? They'll have a timer counting down, or they'll have the number of products and you can see those kind of disappear. So I'll show you a little clip from QVC. And so just listen to what he says.
1101. 1816 is the item number on this one. And the nice thing about these practice guitars. Oh! Oh, that hurt. Oh! that hurt big time. A piece of that the tip just got me, Odell. Oh, that got me good. You all right? A piece of that tip just got me. Oh, right now, we may need emergency surgery in the studio.
I was looking for clips and this is what I came across. It gets better.
Only have a limited number that we can ship out right now because it is very, very popular. We're going to go to the phones. Hi, you're on the air with Lisa and Kevin. What's your name? Hi, Lisa. It's Renee from California. Hey, Renee. Chris is over there kind of giving us a look at how to use the ladder there.
I got to tell you something. I have this ladder. It is awesome.
Oh, now what
And
is
everybody wants this ladder. I live in an apartment with vaulted ceilings.
Okay.
That has never happened.
Well, you know, it's a very slippery floor up there in front of our doors sometimes, so we're going to make sure that Kevin's okay. He's moving, he is okay, but he's scared.
That's the gold standard of health right there. All right, last one.
18th anniversary. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name's Randy.
Hey, Randy, how you doing?
Hi, Randy.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're all right. Where are you calling from, Randy?
I'm calling from Dover, Delaware.
So it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning where you are.
It's the only time I have alone with my new Dell, and I love it.
Thank you.
Great. What kind of things are you using your Dell for, Randy?
So mostly personal use, you know, like porno. These Dells are great for porno. I guarantee it, and I got the porno to prove it. I'll see you guys later when you take my
The reason I started looking for those clips was that they actually do those countdown things, and I kind of got a little bit off track. So that's probably a good place to wrap it up.